State College, Pennsylvania, where the excitement level could not be higher. 1 year removed from their first ever college football playoff berth and boasting one of the most decorated and experienced rosters in the country, the Nittany Lions have their eyes set on their first national championship since 1986. We'll go in depth with James Franklin's team on our Penn State football training camp special now. There is a buzz in the air in State College. The Nittany Lions getting set for 2025. The stadium may be under construction, but the hope is that by the end of the year, this Penn State team will be a finished product. Dave Revsine, Jake Butt, Gerry, DiNardo. Man, I'm excited to see this team in here later today.
I'm excited for everything, literally everything. The competition, the energy, the veterans. I feel like we've watched Drew Allar and Singleton and Allen and a bunch of these guys on this roster grow up. And those guys, there's a number of guys that could be and should be in the NFL at this point, but decided to come back here to Penn State because they have unfinished business. Specifically, what I'm looking for is the wide receiver group. Understanding the goal is to win a championship. I think about Michigan. They had a go-to problem-solving offensive line and running back in Blake Corum. Last year, Ohio State, it was Jeremiah Smith. If you want to win those big games, you need guys on the outside, playmakers, that make plays when it isn't the perfect play call.
You know, James Franklin made an interesting comment at media days when a lot of people were pressuring about this is national championship or bust, and he would say, it's our goal every year to win a national championship. They played for it last year. Obviously, they were in the playoffs. But this is still different, right? There's no denying that this time of year, they're closer to winning a national championship than most years. Most of the players are back. You mentioned the wide receivers, Jake. Drew Allar has to improve when he's playing against the best teams, and one of the way he improves, and James made this point at media days as well, is what used to be a bad pass, meaning the back shoulder pass. That used to be a bad pass in football. Now it's a perfect pass, but you need wide receivers to go up and get that ball. So the wide receivers will make Drew Allar better with an experienced offensive line.
That's a group I cannot wait to see. They went into the transfer portal and got some big names there. And just in general, I mean, you guys have both alluded to it here, and we're only a couple minutes into the show. The goal clearly is the national championship. They have 14 returning all-conference players. Not only is that the most in the Big Ten, it's more than Michigan had in 2023. It's more than Ohio State had in 2024. We'll see if it's the magic formula for the Nittany Lions this year. Among the many headlines from the offseason here in State College, the hiring of Jim Knowles as the new defensive coordinator, replacing Tom Allen, who left for Clemson. Knowles' credentials impeccable. Coordinated Ohio State's national championship D last season, a unit that led the nation in scoring defense. Knowles agreed to a 3-year deal worth more than $3 million per year, making him the highest paid DC in college football. And Jim Knowles is with us now. Coach, I'm just going to lay it right out on the table to start. You're the highest paid defensive coordinator in the country. You come to a place that everyone believes is poised to win a national championship. How much pressure do you feel?
You know, I think you don't survive in this business if you feel that pressure. You know, whether I was the highest paid coach or the lowest or coaching in the Ivy League, it's the same process, you know, and when you can block out all those noise and just do the job the way that you know how to do it and keep growing and keep looking for new ways to do it. The rest of it, while it might play in on a bigger picture, it doesn't have a factor for me.
What does this position mean to you, just given that you grew up in this state and you grew up rooting for Penn State?
Yeah, Penn State was, you know, the school of my boyhood dreams, and being an inner city kid, and I never got to go to a game and certainly wasn't talented enough to be recruited as a player. Just watched the Sunday morning shows with George Paterno and, you know, read all Coach Paterno's books when I was a young coach and, you know, coming from the Ivy League like he did. And it was just a place that I always admired and hoped to someday end up.
Coach, when you take over a program defensively, do you start with your scheme, the scheme that you found when you got here, or personnel?
Yeah, it really depends, Coach, on where you're going and what's the situation when you take over. But, you know, Penn State under Coach Franklin has really had a strong defensive culture. So we're not building from ground zero. So I tried to build in a lot of concepts that they were already using, and then gradually put in some of the things that I like to do.
When you think about the offense that you're going up against, I find it pretty interesting that last year you got to practice against Chip Kelly's offense, and this year you get to practice against Andy Kotelnicki's offense. What does that do in terms of sharpening your defense?
You get challenged every day. You know, with Chip, there were always schemes, you know, to take advantage of where the weaknesses are in your defense. So that made you think all the time and redirect and correct. And with Andy, it's a lot about formations and motions and shifts and maintaining your perimeter. So that's really a whole nother challenge, but it makes me a better coach.
You leave one great program, you come to another great program. Some similarities in the programs and differences in the programs.
Well, they're similar in that, you know, excellence is expected. You're not allowed to lose. You know, I mean, you can't lose a game. Those expectations, I think, drive the program. You know, I would say the culture at Penn State is a little bit more old school, I guess I would call it, in terms of the way Coach Franklin runs it. You know, and I think we still maintain a lot of those old values that have been here forever.
In talking to Andy Kotelnicki, he said he's trying to spread the nickname the Professor for you. In what ways do you believe you are professorial?
Well, I taught a Nautilus class once at Cornell, right? So, I mean, that's, yeah.
So you're an Ivy League professor.
An Ivy League professor. No, I mean, I think it is my job to think ahead, you know, to be a problem solver, to be a great teacher. I don't take offense to it because I think teaching is certainly one of the things that we as coaches need to be best at, and problem solving. So if that's a professor, I'll take it.
There's been a lot of conversation about you meeting with the Penn State offensive staff because you had competed against them. What was that process like?
Very collaborative, very non-ego. I don't think you can pull something like that off unless there's already a culture here of collaboration, and Coach Franklin builds that every day. I mean, there's a lot of feedback, there's a lot of give and take. So when you go into one of those situations, you can be honest because you're not worried about hurting anybody's feelings, you know, and that helps us all get better.
Jim Knowles, really a pleasure. Thanks a lot, Coach. Look forward to watching your defense on the field this year.
Thank you.
Penn State, the preseason pick to win the Big Ten in the unofficial preseason poll conducted for the 15th straight year by Cleveland.com. The Nittany Lions, the narrow choice over defending national champ Ohio State. It marks the first time Penn State has ever been chosen as the favorite heading into the year, and the first time in 11 years that a school other than the Buckeyes or Michigan has been picked to win the conference. And joined now by the head coach of the Nittany Lions, James Franklin. Coach, let's start with that poll. You guys are considered the preseason favorites in the Big Ten. What have you said to your team about playing with that mantle and the expectations that come with it?
Yeah, not a whole lot. We've talked about it a little bit, and you know, I think there's a sense of appreciation that we've earned that based on all the hard work the guys have put in and the guys that decided to come back. And we love that there's excitement about Penn State, not only in the Big Ten. I would have in the past said, you know, footprint, but the footprint now goes coast to coast, so it's a little bit different. So I think there's excitement. There's a lot of people talking about Penn State nationally. But at the end of the day, preseason polls mean absolutely nothing, but they're good things for you guys to talk about. We got to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to build the program and the team for this year day by day.
Big picture, on your program. I mean, this is year 12 for you, which is pretty amazing how time flies. What are you proudest of what you've built here?
I'm proud of it all, right? And what I mean by that is you guys know when we got to Penn State, it looked a little bit different. Obviously, one of the best programs historically, but there was a rough patch. And, to think about what we've been able to do, the consistency that we've been able to do, the number of players that have gone on and done special things, and then obviously the excitement for this season. So I'm just, I'm really proud of it all. The coaching staff we've put together, how the facilities have changed since we've arrived, all of it, because in today's college football, it all matters.
Coach, having such a veteran team, I mean, you got guys that are proven and experienced at every position. How does that affect what you do at this point in time in the year?
Well, we're just further ahead. The combination of that, but also the rule changes, right? You're able to do more in the summer. In the old days, it had to be completely player-led, and you weren't, able to be involved with them as much. So the fact that we're older, veteran, experienced guys, and then also how do you maximize the summer? And it's a fine line because you want to make sure the coaches get some time off. But they're also kind of conflicted because they want to be here to make sure that we're getting all the installs and where we need to be. So specifically on offense and special teams, we're way ahead. Defensively, we can't describe it the same way, obviously, with a new defense coordinator in Coach Knowles. But once again, installing your defense in today's college football with what you're able to do in the summer and the meetings and things like that allows you to get further ahead.
Is that your main goal for defense throughout the next few weeks of fall camp? What are those areas that they need to take those strides to catch up to the offense?
Well, it's a fine line, right? Because part of that I control in terms of what do we install each day for both sides of the ball to get better. Andy wants to be on trigonometry while Jim's still, installing geometry, right? Making sure that both sides are getting the ball. But I think we're multiple on offense, which is really good for our defense, creates challenges, and vice versa. So we just want to make sure that we're doing a great job of that so that defensively we go into the season feeling like we're able to play high-level football, championship-level football, and then the next phase is when we get into conference play, have we been able to take a significant step from game one?
Drew took some big-time strides last year. Felt like the main thing was changing his body. He used his legs more last fall. You've mentioned you want to see him become a top 10 pick. What are those next areas, that next level for him to grow into?
Well, I want him to win a Big Ten championship. I want him to have a chance to win at the very highest level in college football, a national championship, and then be a top 10 pick. All those things combined, and even the first pick, right? And what we talk about all the time is with team success comes individual recognition. But to your point, I think last year he changed his body significantly, which allowed him to be more athletic, extend plays, make some big-time throws. So it's not really like one glaring area that I feel like he needs to get better. It's just continually growing in every area, and they're smaller steps, but they still add up and they matter. So from a leadership standpoint, from a body composition standpoint, from an athleticism standpoint, from an accuracy standpoint, from a decision-making standpoint, and then also year two in the offense for a quarterback, that's probably the most significant thing.
It does feel like we've seen these guys grow up in your program. There's so much that's known and proven on your roster at this point. But if you had to pick 1 to 2 position groups or really key areas that you're hoping take strides during fall camp, what would they be?
Well, obviously a big storyline last year was the wide receiver position and not enough production specifically in what people would term big games. So that has been a huge emphasis all summer, really since the season ended. And that's been good so far. Going out and getting 3 guys that have proven production, 2 of them specifically at this level, but then also some young guys that we're really excited about. So the room has been elevated, based on that, and that's going to be important for us moving forward. And then also some depth, right? We have some really good high-level players, but in today's college football, you better have a legitimate 3 deep at every position. We played the longest season in the history of Penn State football last year, and to win at the very, very highest level, you're going to have that. So depth, the 2s and the 3s, we're all over those guys, making sure that they're ready to contribute and help us win games.
You were touching earlier on Jim Knowles and getting his defense installed. You've had so many good defenses here. I mean, you've just built a reputation for being fabulous on that side of the ball. You hire the highest paid defensive coordinator now in the country. What has stood out as you've watched him put his tweaks on your defense?
Well, I'm more concerned rather than his pay than his resume, right? The guy has had championship-level defenses everywhere he's been. When you're going out to hire a defense coordinator, you could make the argument that, the #1 defensive coordinator in college football, the most respected defensive coordinator in college football. So being able to bring him in, he's just done a phenomenal job. I think there's also the aspect that every time he's done this, right, whether it's been Duke, whether it's been Oklahoma State, whether it's been Ohio State, he's gotten better at his process as well. We all do, right? Every time you install a defense, you get better at tweaking and how you can speed up that maturation process, and has done a really good job. Our staff as well on the defensive side of the ball, embracing it. Our players too. Ton of answers. Last 2 defensive coordinators, we played a ton of man coverage, which was really important. But I think Jim's helping us in those 1 or 2 games a year where we got to have a little bit more answers. And this defense provides that.
I can't wait to see it. James Franklin, thanks a lot for your time.
Coach.
Appreciate
Thank you, guys.
Coach.
Appreciate it.
Penn State returning 8 of 11 starters from an offense that improved by leaps and bounds last season under first-year coordinator Andy Kotelnicki. Among the headliners, QB Drew Allar, who completed nearly 72% of his passes in the regular season, and Nick Singleton and Kaytron Allen, who both went over 1,000 yards rushing last year and are both among the top 3 nationally among active players in career rushing yards. Allar and Singleton with Jake.
All right, it's the last go-around for you guys. You guys are the veterans in the locker room now. I want you to, Drew, we'll start with you. Take me back to your freshman year to now. What's changed? What feels different?
There's been a lot that's changed. I think for me personally, it's just being comfortable in my own skin. I think I had a lot of great leaders to learn under when I was a freshman, between Jair Brown, Sean Clifford, PJ Mustipher. There's a lot more that I haven't named that have had a huge influence on me and my leadership style. So I think just growing into my skin and comfortability with being outspoken more, just because it didn't really come natural to me at first. But then also in the weight room, I think I've made a tremendous amount of strides every year I've been under Coach Losi, and I think that's really helped me in my game on the field.
Nick?
Yeah, for me, I say freshman year, I'm kind of a quiet person, so I was quiet like the whole time, my whole year. But now since senior year, I kind of talk anymore, be more vocal of a leader and just have my teammates, trust me.
Yeah, you guys are the leaders. It's your team now. And I know the atmosphere around this program's always, the fans are always excited. But this year does feel different. Can you speak to the atmosphere and the excitement from the fans?
Yeah, the atmosphere has been crazy. You see it on social media. Fans, they're saying this could be the team. This is the year. We look at it. But at the same time we block it out. We're just worried about camp. Just focus on camp, the fundamentals. Getting the young guys right. It's just getting better.
All right, Drew, we got to talk about your weapons, these new wide receivers. I'll even throw the tight ends in there as well. What's your level of comfort with that group, and what are you most excited for your weapons?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think the receivers had a really strong day, or strong 5 days of camp. I think it starts at the top. I think the older guys in that room, between Liam Clifford and really all the guys we brought in, Kyron Hudson, Trevor Pena, and Devontae Ross, have all had really good starts, and I think that's trickled down to the young guys. Like, we've had young guys flash. Kobe Howard's made a huge amount of plays. Same with Lyric Samuel, Matt Alton's coming along, Tyseer Denmark. Like, we have a lot of young guys in that room that are making plays, and I think it really started at the top with that leadership in that room, and it's been a really fun camp so far. I think we're pushing the ball downfield really well, and we're just opening up our pass game, and that's a credit to Nick and all the O-line guys, just really doing a good job in the run game, and then allowing me to sit back in protection and just survey the defense and push it downfield.
3rd and 8, it's a Big Ten championship. You got a favorite guy? Who are you looking to?
The open guy.
Exactly. I figured that'd be the answer.
Guy, yeah.
Nick, for you and Kaytron, you guys are vets. At a certain point, you're chasing margins. You want to get 1 or 2% better. So I know you guys are roommates. What is that next level? Is there a next level for you guys in the run game?
Yeah, for sure. It's always the next level. We always find ways to get better. You know, if it's just running the ball, blocking, catching. You know, if he's on the field, I'm just seeing the defense, just giving them looks. Then whenever he comes back on the sideline, I tell him like, "Oh, you see this, you see this." Just helping each other out, and vice versa if I'm on the field too. So it's been really good.
Drew, there was a story that came out about Jim Knowles and how he met with the staff and did a self-scout on your offense last year. Were you able to take anything from that meeting?
Yeah, I was able to take a lot of things, and he brought over a couple analysts from Ohio State, and I actually, sat down and watched the game from them, with them, and I kind of wanted to just understand defensive philosophy more, specifically with Coach Knowles and his scheme, because it's the best scheme I've gone against in my 4 years of or 3 years of college, going into my 4th year, and just understanding like why they were making certain calls in certain situations, and maybe tendencies I had, the offense had to, allow them to make those calls. And I think for me, it kind of reaffirmed some of the areas I wanted to get better in, the areas that I was good in last year, but also the areas I needed improvement. So, I'm really happy he's on our team, just because going against not only the best defensive scheme in the country every day in practice, but also the best defensive roster in terms of talent that we have.
What are some of those areas that you want to focus on to grow into?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just, letting the receivers eat downfield a little bit more, just trusting the timing. If it's not in rhythm, just taking a deep breath and make it right. And I think those are areas of my game that have helped me get to the point, and now it's just expanding on that. And I think that's been a big emphasis for me throughout camp. And it's helped us create more big plays downfield, so I'm really excited to keep working at that.
Last question for both of you guys. I just want to talk about the big boys up front. James mentioned he thinks this group has a chance to be really, really special. So, Nick, what have you seen from your offensive line as far as the run game goes?
Yeah, the O-line has been phenomenal. The best O-line in the country. I've been saying it since day one. Throughout the whole offseason, they just took another step, maybe more discipline, the workload. They've just been working. You can just tell throughout camp they've been doing a heck of a job. So, good things this year.
How about your relationship with the big boys up front?
Yeah, they've done it, like Nick said, they've taken a great step. And I think it really started with Dawkins, Vanga, and Drew Shelton. I think those 3 guys have really taken hold of that whole O-line room as a whole, helping the young guys come along. I mean, we legitimately have 10 guys that can play in a game for us. And I think that's a credit to Coach Trout and the whole offensive staff of developing those guys, but also the leaders of that room helping those young guys develop. And I think, for me, it makes my job a lot easier, because I just have to give them the right pro call, and I have all the confidence in the world that they'll make me right, and I have 2 of the best backs in America that will make me right too, and make the O-line right if I do make the wrong pro call for whatever reason. But it's been a great summer, and they've done a great job since the pads have been on, and just being physical and just asserting their dominance.
Well, listen, there's a lot to be excited about. It's been fun to cover you guys, and looking forward to covering you this fall. So, Drew, Nick, appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
If there was an area where Penn State had to get better offensively, it was wide receiver, a position that generated just 45% of their receiving yards last year, second lowest in Power Conference football. They attacked that weakness with a vengeance in the transfer portal, picking up more than 2,500 receiving yards from last season by grabbing Trevor Pena from Syracuse, Devontae Ross from Troy, and USC's Kyron Hudson. Those 3 hauled in 23 TD grabs between them last year. Penn State's receivers all combined for 12. So, guys, as we break down this Penn State offense, let's start there with the wide receivers. You think back to the last time we saw them on the field against Notre Dame. Amazingly, they did not complete a single pass to a wide receiver in that game. They addressed it in the portal. What did you think of that group?
I would just evaluating them. If this group was out there against Notre Dame, that would not be the story. I mean, they clearly upgraded just from a physical standpoint. Guys are strong, twitchy, good route runners. They've proven that in their prior schools. To me, the one that really stood out was Hudson, just a bigger guy. And I think what he can provide after the catch, I think he's about 215 pounds. He's going to be able to break tackles and get involved in their screen game.
Hudson looked like the one who got vertical the fastest. Kotelnicki's offense, it's not really a vertical offense all that much. So you've got 2 things here. You've got improved wide receivers, and now they've got to take more shots downfield. And obviously they know that. But I think the 3 portal guys are all going to help a weak spot, which was wide receiver.
And, of course, that caused them to rely a ton on Tyler Warren. Part of that was also that he was just really, really, really good. As our expert tight end evaluator, Jake, what do we think of what is the new tight end group led by Khalil Dinkins.
I think this is maybe the new tight end honestly, and I've told that to Coach Franklin. They've got a long history going back about a half decade, even to my years, of putting guys in the NFL, and I just see another really talented group. Khalil Dinkins is a freak athlete, but the one I'm really excited about is Luke Reynolds. I think he's more of your throwback classic tight end that's going to work in that 5 to 15-yard range, be a really friendly target for Drew Allar.
Yeah, I think Luke Reynolds fits in this offense a lot. This is kind of like the opposite of wide receivers. This is an offense that features the underneath stuff with the tight end more so than the deep ball as of last year. But again, they've got to get the deep ball involved, but they've got two really good tight ends.
So if I defer to Jake on tight ends, Gerry, I will defer to you, the former All-American offensive lineman on the offensive line. I think back to the beginning of James Franklin's time here at Penn State, and this was not by his doing. It was the roster he inherited, but offensive line was a weak spot, no doubt. It's amazing to think about what it used to look like and what we saw here tonight.
There were 22 offensive linemen out there tonight. They all can bend. We can go back before. We can go back to Joe Paterno. We can go back to O'Brien. They were struggling with the offensive line. They had all guard physical types. They didn't have any tackles. Now they've got a bunch of tackles, a bunch of guards. They all can bend. It is as deep an offensive line as I think I've seen.
If this team achieves their goals and they do win a national title, I think that's going to be the story we tell about this offense. To me, it was the offensive line that stood out. I know everyone's excited about the wide receiver group, but those are NFL bodies. They're 7 or 8 deep. They have more than 5 starters. They bend naturally. They're extremely physical. I think that's going to be the foundation of this offense. But just to kind of put this all together, Kotelnicki is an artist. He's almost like Picasso. And I look at all these weapons like the colors of the rainbow. All of a sudden, he has so many more tools at his disposal where he can start to showcase and display that creativity. That's going to put a ton of stressors on their opposing defenses.
Well, we spent a few minutes there on the offense. We did mention Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, or Drew Allar. We have mentioned them now.
Good luck stopping them.
One measure of just how much Andy Kotelnicki improved Penn State's offense last year, explosion in the run game. A huge jump in rushes of 10 yards or longer, more than 100 on the year, the most in the Big Ten. And then the breakaway runs of 40 yards or longer also led the conference, quadrupling the total from the season before. Wasn't just in the run game either. Penn State's 77 plays of 20 yards or longer overall were also the most in the Big Ten. Kotelnicki now with Gerry and Jake.
All right, Coach, you're about a week into fall camp. Tons of veterans on your offensive side of the football. Maybe let's start with what are your expectations and the ceiling for your unit?
Well, the expectations are high, right? You know what I mean? So we want to be able to execute at a really, really high level. When you get to this point in camp, you have some, you have a pretty good idea probably where you're going to be at, what it's going to look like. And so the challenging thing is with some of these veteran guys at this point in camp is what does it look like to get them better? So to get a Drew Allar better, like a 1% better from practice 5 to 6 is a lot different than, maybe your first year starter, if you had something like that, or you're a freshman quarterback. And what happens as coaches for so many years, you do it, and your fall camps kind of start to look the same, and this is what we're going to do in this day. Well, Drew's got a lot of experience. There's still some of these other linemen, so do you have to adjust and maybe modify your install? Does it got to be a little bit faster? Can you do a little bit more, to help them grow and really kind of do what's best for our football team? So we're at where we're expected. We're competing every day, which is a lot of fun. But having these veteran guys, really for us as coaches, it's a challenge. It's a fun challenge because we're not just coaching some of this, the entry-level, low-hanging fruit things that happens a lot in maybe a fall camp or a spring football, especially early. Like we're advanced already. You know what I mean? We're into situational football. We're deep into the playbook already. So that's really has been really fun, and the expectations are and they're meeting them as players.
So that 1% for Drew Allar, what is that?
It's a lot of things, right? So you can't sit there and just say it's 1%, hey, work out this. You know what I mean? It's about really 1% in all these areas that you look for from a good quarterback. So for him, let's just start with mentally, right? As you guys know, it's really common in football that maybe you have a 3-by-1 formation and you're going to give the single receiver to create an isolation, right?
Right.
Now, so if you're a first-year quarterback, you might not give him an option to have that receiver change his route. Well, now you got a guy like Drew. You know what I mean? You could give that guy 4 options, for him to communicate what route he wants him to run. So, that I use that as a small example of within the playbook, adding little wrinkles to help us be in the best play that he can control because of his experience and, his football acumen, right?
I have to imagine a valuable piece of this is Coach Knowles, and the story came out about the self-scout and how he met with your staff. What did you take away from that meeting that's going to allow you to improve upon your unit?
Well, it starts with, continuing to do these things that we do well, right? And building upon them. And really, I think some of the feedback that he gave, really was like about, maybe it was personnel based, and a lot of it might have been, hey, keep doing this because this is really hard, or I was worried about this, and you didn't do it, or do less of this, because it's not that big of a deal. So it was that kind of feedback that you have when you're talking with him. It's been fun having him around, from having competed against him, but then, he has a multiple defense, but it's also still very based in, sound football. And so and that's kind of what we're at offense as well, right? So we're going against that every day, O versus D it's really, I'll use the word stimulating. It's very stimulating for us as a staff and players.
The wide receiver room has been really a point of emphasis during the offseason. Give us a rundown on the players.
Well, let's just start with the 3 new guys. And Trevor has come in and done a great job. Devontae Ross was here in the spring. He did a great job. Kyron Hudson. All 3 of those guys have been great additions physically, but I'm more excited about the kind of teammates they've been. As you know, and today, a team is a team, and whoever you add to it is going to, it's going to help and raise the team, or it's going to lower it in a lot of different ways. And so those 3 guys specifically have done a great job of elevating the room specifically, but also our football team. They're great. They're great teammates. Then you have Liam Clifford coming back for his last year, who for me, I'm excited because I have a really clear vision of what his capabilities are and what he can do to help us move the football and win games. And I don't want to go through every name, but the youth in our receiver room right now, I'm really, really excited about.
It's really made Drew Allar better.
100%. Yep, 100%. It's made our whole football team better.
I want to ask you about the trenches, though. I mean, looking at it, you got objectively more than 5 starters.
Yeah.
Like, you got guys that you just can't get on the field. How important is that group to reaching your goals this year, and what are your expectations for them?
Yeah, so in my opinion, right, everyone talks about the quarterback position being the most important. It is, okay? But the most important position group is your offensive line. And they really set a tone for a whole football team. If you got a tough physical offensive line that does the hard things, usually that's your football team. And when you look at teams that are winning championships year after year, everyone usually talks about elite skill players, and there are. But they all have great line play on both sides of the ball in common. So we have a really strong offensive line unit coming back. There's experience there. The challenge for us is to answer the question, who are going to be the guys? And the reality is probably going to be a combination of them, right? They're all good enough that no one's going to just sit and watch the whole game. And I've said before, I'll say it again. I mean, whatever it takes for to move the football. You know what I mean? To put stress on the defense. If we got to put 7, 8 of them on the field at one time, let's go. You know what I mean? Let's have fun with it.
Going to be really fun to watch your unit this fall. Andy Kotelnicki, thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
Back in State College, where defense has been a constant under James Franklin. 4 straight years in the top 10 in the nation in scoring D, a trend that figures to continue this season. And joined now by 2 stars of that Penn State defense, Dani, Dennis-Sutton, and Tony Rojas. One of the big storylines here, guys, obviously, is the new defensive coordinator in Jim Knowles. Interested from both of you. How would you describe his defense? Dani, I can start with you.
Oh, it's super fun up front. It's an attacking defense. It's the most fun I've had since I've been here, man. I'm really enjoying it. Obviously, Coach Knowles knows what he's doing. He's confident, but I love the attacking style of defense that we're playing right now.
So when you say it's fun, what you like about it is what it allows you to do?
Oh, yeah, we get to sack the quarterback. Yeah. Nah, we got plays where we're just getting the quarterback. Like, half of our plays is me just getting the quarterback. So, obviously, that's fun as a defensive end.
How about from a linebacker's point of view, Tony?
Yeah, like Dani said, obviously, the style he brings from, the past school he was at is fun. And then, like he said, he just sets it up for the linebackers and the D-line just to make plays in general. So, like he said, it's just fun.
I noticed the phrase, the last school he was at. Do you just not want to say the name of that school? I mean, you are aware where he was, right?
Yeah, we just, we don't wear the color or speak about it. So.
Okay, fair enough. What about the process of install? Like, how has that gone? Because the one thing that people say about the defense is that it is complex. He says it about the defense. Tell me about the install and how far along you feel like you are.
Yeah. I didn't practice in the spring, so, I kind of had a lot of time to focus mentally and, just get the playbook, from start to finish. So, now I got it all locked in, and like he said, it is complex, but at the end of the day, he does the job, at the highest level, and, we're grateful to have him.
Dani?
Yeah, I would say, I've been through this already with 2 DCs, with Coach Manny and Coach Allen. So I've been through it already. But, yeah, Coach Knowles' defense, like I said, it's fun, man. It's not too crazy for me up front. I've been through it. And he's also a great teacher. You know what I mean? Obviously, you don't want the simple defense that the offense can pick up easily. So I don't think it's too challenging, but he's a great teacher. So.
Tell me about his teaching style. He has kind of this mad scientist / professor reputation. How does that show up for you guys?
Yeah, I think he breaks everything down. Like, everything that he does is for a reason, you know what I'm saying? So he's not just doing anything just for it. Like, he has a vision, he has a reason why he's doing everything, and he explains it to us. So I think even me being under Coach Knowles, just these past couple months, my IQ of the game has gone up.
Tony, you were talking about the fact you didn't participate in spring practice. You were rehabbing a shoulder injury. You mentioned one of the positives is it allowed you to really get into the playbook and get a lot of mental reps. What about the physical part of it? How do you feel like?
Yeah, obviously, just being out with the guys was kind of, it was annoying. But, I got my body right. And, like I said, I got to get the playbook down to 100% and, just study the game in the offseason while there was a spring ball. So, just watching what offenses do, like out of certain formations and stuff, I got that all knocked down now. So, like Dani said also, Jim Knowles, he's like a mastermind. He just sits back and then he just reads the play and then, he'll figure out one thing that went wrong and just, he'll tell us, like he said, he's a teacher.
Dani, when you decided to come back and you clearly had a decision to make, one of the things that you said in your statement was you came back to pursue a national championship. So to what extent do you guys talk about that goal as a team and as a defense?
Yeah, I think it's something that's really an unspoken goal that we all know we're chasing after. Coach Franklin preaches the 1-0 mindset. Everybody's heard it a million times, but it's true. We take it day by day. Obviously, we all know what the goal is. We all trying to be our best version of ourselves and be the best team that we can be, but we don't have to speak about it, We're just going out there and working, but we all know what the goal is at the end of the day.
Tony, there's a lot of talk about you being the next great linebacker at Linebacker U. What does it mean to be kind of a spotlight guy?
Yeah, from LBU, you got to step up to the standard, and obviously, there's high expectations for, everyone in the LB room, but for me, just, taking it in, and the guys in the past, like Micah, LeVar, they're always helping out. So, just, taking that pressure, I think it's a privilege. So, just living up to the standard every day is my expectation.
So you made Bruce Feldman's freaks list that came out earlier this week. Do you consider yourself to be a freak?
I do, yeah. I think in the weight room I am. So,
what's the most freakish thing you've seen him do?
I think the 40-yard dash, he was like in a 4.3, something crazy like that. It was absurd. Yeah, crazy.
Tony Rojas, Dani, Dennis-Sutton, have a great year, guys. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir.
More on the Nittany Lions' defensive prowess. Pretty remarkable consistency. This is the last 4 years combined. Top 6 in the nation in all of these key defensive categories. What makes it even more impressive is that this has happened under 3 different defensive coordinators: Brent Pry, Manny Diaz, and Tom Allen. Jim Knowles looking to continue the success this season. As we focus in on that defense, Knowles makes no bones, Jake, about his defense being complex. And so I think one of the questions, or maybe the biggest question here, is how quickly is this group going to grasp it? So how would you assess where they are?
They look like they're already at graduate level to me. I think that's what was most impressive. This is a complex defense. They're playing against a complex offense. Like Kotelnicki is going to throw in some exotic formations, personnel groups. And what we saw in practice in the team periods are call-it periods. These are not scripted, which means the call is coming from the sideline, forcing the defense to adapt on the fly. I felt like they were playing fast. The communication was coming in. And for Jim Knowles, he puts a lot of stress on the secondary, too. These guys are playing press man-to-man coverage. They have to adjust and pass off routes. To me, I felt the defensive secondary won the day against these new talented wide receivers.
James Franklin has had a great track record hiring defensive coordinators. This is 3 in a row that look like home runs. I don't think it's any more complex than what they've been doing. I think this group of defenders here are used to the change because they've had 3 defensive coordinators. And remember, Jim Knowles is coming here from the same conference. So So there's not as a learning curve as there is if you would hire a defensive coordinator from another conference. I think these guys are smart. I think they'll pick it up quick, and I don't think complex slows them down one bit.
Taking the coordinator part out of it, let's talk about the personnel. What stood out as you watched this defense, Gerry?
It might have been the 22 defensive linemen that they have that look like Olympian athletes. I mean, their defensive line is just extraordinary.
Yeah. Zane Durant, I was just blown away by him. I think he's one of the more underrated defensive linemen in our conference. That's an NFL body, and they don't have Abdul Carter on this defensive line. But I think the sum of Zane Durant and Dennis-Sutton collectively could be the best D-tackle, D-end in the conference. And listen, again, we're going to judge Penn State against Ohio State and Oregon. So understanding who Ohio State has, great wide receivers, they're going to have to play split safety coverage. Ohio State has Max Clare, I think maybe a Mackey Award-winning tight end. I was impressed by the speed of Penn State's linebackers. That's going to be a tall task when they play this fall. So across the board, I felt the pass coverage stood out.
You know, nowadays, there's a lot of unselfish players. You know, there was a time in the past when you never wanted to substitute, right? The players said, I'm first team, I don't want to. Nowadays, they roll those people through, especially defending the spread. Those defensive linemen will always be fresh. They encourage one another. I was just really impressed with that whole defensive line operation.
Even the depth, you know, the third group gets in there. Like, that's the future. I'm looking at some of the freshmen they're recruiting. Right. Those are freshmen that have college-ready bodies, guys that are defensive linemen that are 250 pounds that look physically ready to play. So the future is bright as well.
One thing that just stands out across the board, and this applies on the offensive side of the ball as well, this is a really good-looking team.
Yes.
Physically. I mean, they are really impressive, in great shape, and it showed up here tonight. Wrapping things up from State College, where they are counting down to the season opener at the end of this month against Nevada. We've got the game the next week against FIU. Conference openers at home against Oregon, one of the most highly anticipated games of the year. First 2 weeks of November, really challenging. Two playoff teams from a season ago, including an Ohio State team that has given them and everyone else fits. 4 of their last 6 conference games are on the road. So as we wrap things up, guys, final thoughts on a team that certainly feels, from where I sit anyway, like it has all the pieces.
Yeah, there's no breaking news. I can confirm from my point of view that is a championship level roster, and I think the veteran presence really stood out. I even go back to watching the walkthrough. You know, how you do anything is how you do everything. And a lot of teams, when they go through a walkthrough, they just go through the motions, they check the box. That group, and I think it's a credit to Drew Allar and the veteran running back Singleton and Allen, that group took the walkthrough as if they were preparing to play for the national title game. And then once you put on the pads, you can see the level of competition. I think the trenches really stood out to me, Coach. I think that's going to be the storyline of this team if they ultimately do win the championship.
Yeah, I would start out by saying, wow, that's as good a team as we've seen here in 19 years. And it's as good a team as I think we've seen in the Big Ten in 19 years. You know, you go to different schools. Ohio State, of course, was one. Michigan was one, and they looked different than everybody else. Penn State looked different than most people in this conference. I think it's really talented team, senior leadership, and they're definitely a national championship contender.
They're going to be judged by how they do against the best teams. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? We know the numbers. 1 win against top 5 teams this century. 1-10 against Ohio State. Look, Ohio State showed us last year, you don't have to win every game to win the national championship, but you're going to have to win some games like that, Jake.
Yeah, and look, I don't have predictions at this point. I mean, I can't say confidently this team's going to go undefeated and win a national title, but I can say that there's a reason Drew and Singleton and Allen and Dennis-Sutton and Zane Durant, guys like that, they came back because they are capable of doing that. It's going to come down to those razor-thin margins. And I think a big piece of this is going out to get Jim Knowles. I was impressed by the defense, understanding how many layers and how complex this is. At this point in fall camp, I think this defense is going to compete to be one of, if not the best in the country once again.
I mean, depth is part of winning the national championship, you know, because you're going to have injuries. So they certainly have depth. I would say about Drew Allar, he has to play his best game against the best opponents. His numbers go down against the best opponents, but every quarterback's numbers go down against the best opponents. But he has to make the defensive coordinator he's going against say, this quarterback can beat us. And that's his next step. And it sure looks like he's ready for it.
And James alluded to that. I mean, it's not just on Drew. It's going to be on those wide receivers again, too. And I think we all agree it is a clear upgrade there. The tight ends are an upgrade. And again, the offensive line, Drew's going to have time in the pocket. They're going to be able to establish the run. That offensive line is such an important piece to their team's success.
Can't wait. Can't wait to see this team against Oregon, to see them against Ohio State. I mean, those are going to be mammoth games this year in the Big Ten, and certainly they feel like they're in good position here in State College. We are on our way to Rutgers next. Back-to-back winning seasons for the Scarlet Knights for the first time in more than a decade. We will check in on Greg Schiano's team and see how they look as we continue our tour of the Big Ten. I want to thank everyone here at Penn State, including the great sports information staff, Chris Peterson, Greg Kincaid, Paul Marbo, and everyone who helped us along the way. We will see you in Piscataway. Thanks so much for watching as our Big Ten football tour rolls on.